Hello there. I want to talk today about meditation and everyday life and how we can bring those two things together. So, the reason I want to do that is because I think one of the things that we tend to do, which is very unhelpful, is to see meditation in a very separate way to what happens in the rest of our life. And what we're really trying to do is to bring mindful awareness um, into our daily activities and ultimately into our whole life. So, usually, we learn meditation as a technique, and we do that for various reasons. Maybe we've got some anxiety or depression, maybe we want to be a little bit calmer. Maybe we're just interested because we've heard that it's a good technique for becoming happier, more relaxed. And certainly all those things are an effect of meditation. I think the difficulty is that we have expectations that we bring to meditation, things that we want, experiences that we want to happen. And that is mistaking meditation for something that it isn't. So meditation is about becoming more aware. In some ways, it's just as simple as that. We become more aware. So just to divert a little bit, so with Buddhism, the reason that the Buddha taught meditation and other teachings that he did teach was because he wanted an answer to suffering, to why it is that we suffer. Or why, if we don't even see it as suffering, why being alive is ultimately difficult and unsatisfactory. Ultimately, of course, we have a lot of pleasure. In many ways, it's very satisfactory, but underneath, we all have fears and concerns about what it means to be alive. We're all looking for meaning. And the Buddha set out as a young man on that search for the end of suffering, and he found it, but that's another talk, and for another time. So what is it that meditation is? So it's an experience of going more deeply into our awareness using techniques, but the techniques themselves are like an anchor or a means to deeper states of mind. And for some people, that happens right away. Sometimes we talk about beginner's mind. And beginner's mind is the situation where we come across meditation with such an open mind, such a sense of wonder and interest and curiosity, that we immediately allow ourselves to just open to the experience of awareness. But for most people, that possibly doesn't happen. And what happens is we put in a lot of effort to create experiences that we're looking for or that we want. And that kind of effort often prevents us from really relaxing enough, being open enough to allow awareness to manifest in its fullness, if you like, to have an experience that's open, that's receptive and joyful. So we could say that those experiences of openness and joy and interest are the natural state of our awareness. But it's overcast, if you like. It's veiled with expectations and views and attitudes that we already bring to the meditation. And it's those that get in the way. So when we learn to meditate, it's really important, particularly with mindfulness, that we learn how to bring mindfulness into our everyday life. And that involves partly learning how to look and be receptive. So let's say, for example, that we're doing a practice of just looking at our garden. Maybe we're sitting in the garden or looking out of the window at the garden. So bringing mindfulness to looking at the garden sounds terribly simple, but what tends to happen is all sorts of thoughts arise in our mind. So instead of being close to the experience of looking at the garden, what tends to happen is thoughts arise like, oh, the grass will need cutting soon. Oh, I wonder what colour those flowers, do I remember what colour those flowers were last year? It looks like they're starting to come up. Oh, I think something needs cutting back. All these kind of thoughts arise. And of course they'll arise. That's what the mind does. We've been using our mind to think all throughout our lives. But what we're actually wanting to do is to be receptive to the beauty and the naturalness of what's already there. Because if we can learn how to do that, we will also do that when we close our eyes and are sitting in meditation, doing the mindfulness of breathing perhaps. And instead of watching the breath, instead of being receptive to the flow of breath, to a rising and passing of each breath, to relaxing in a sense of well-being in our body. Instead of that, what's happening is a thought arises, and before we know it, we have built on that thought. We've run away with that thought. We've followed wherever it's going to take us. And before we know it, we've forgotten all about the breath. So learning how to be receptive and open is really what we're trying to do, both in meditation, formal meditation, and in everyday life. And it's exactly the same when we look at people. So as soon as we see somebody, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's someone we don't know, maybe it's someone we dislike, there's all sorts of expectations and views and attitudes that we have immediately. They pop up so instantaneously that we don't even recognize that that's happening. So it's immediate responses of pleasure or pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So in the Metta Bhavana practice, in the practice of loving kindness, we learn about our responses, how quickly they occur, and we learn how to let go of some of those responses. And we let go not by pushing them away, but by recognition. That's the important point, recognizing what's happening. So there you are. If you're still looking at this video, looking at me, and some people say, oh, I don't like the colour of her jumper, or I don't like her hair. Other people think, oh, what she says is quite interesting, or, oh, I wonder where she lives. It could be all sorts of things. And all the sorts of things that come into our mind prevent us from really being receptive. So when we're listening to somebody talking, we're getting bored, or we're interested, or we're getting impatient. Maybe this video's gone on for too long. This is all awareness. If we can bring attention to what is going on in our mind, and we do that in meditation and we do that in everyday life, we just notice that all the time we have preferences and views that impose themselves onto the actual experience of being with whatever's in the garden, being with whoever it is, being open, just open to receiving rather than making assumptions. So yeah, ultimately, we want to bring formal meditation very close to our experience of everyday life and mindfulness in everyday life. So I think that's all I've got to say today. Bye for now.